Hello, Commissioner. Commissioner, how are you?
Harold, how are you?
Doing well. Everyone is assembling.
Good, good. I talked to, well, I didn't talk to Joanne. Well, I guess I did talk to Joanne, but so she knows what we're planning on doing with respect to the consent agenda.
Yes.
Understood.
Glad to hear your voice, though.
Yeah, thank you.
We have 3 minutes, so
Yep. Well,
I know, I'm just. There's no calling you Joey? Sides of March.
I'm glad you know. So otherwise, she didn't say it.
Hey. It's a light. It's like a paint. How about the 8?
where is the, where's the view?
The 8. Fingers crossed. Well, the one that we're pulling out.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is 1 o'clock and we will call the meeting of March 11th to order. Reading of the minutes is first thing on the agenda. Anybody have any questions, concerns, or changes?
I move that we approve the minutes of, February 18th as presented.
I second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment at this time?
I would if, but I'm happy to let anyone else go. If there's anyone else who wants to make public comment. Now is the best time.
Yeah.
That's what we. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, here, any of the mic dots you can.
I don't see the mute on here, honey.
So I hope I do this in a respectful manner because I'm
Just
so sorry.
Pull the microphone in close, please. And
Gracious.
thank you. Speak so that we can hear you.
Okay, I hope that I do this in a respectful manner, and I'm going to rely upon the notes that I have. I'm simply a resident of Newcastle County, okay? Not a politician, not environmentalist, and I am.
Excuse me. Can you identify yourself, please?
My name is Stephanie Royal, and I'm not a lawyer. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Royal, and I'm a resident of Newcastle County. I'm here today because Delaware residents are being asked to shoulder increasing electric costs while our state is simultaneously being targeted for extremely large new energy consumers, particularly hyperscale digital data centers. Delmarva Power has recently requested significant rate increases from this commission. For many households, that can mean higher monthly bills at a time when families are already struggling with rising costs. At the same time, Delaware is seeing proposals for facilities that may consume electricity equivalent to tens of thousands of homes, quite possibly the entirety of the residential's homes in the state of Delaware. This raises a simple but fundamental question. Who will pay for the infrastructure required to serve these massive new loads? Across the country, history shows that when guardrails are not clearly established, the cost of grid updates open shifts onto residential ratepayers. I appreciate that this commission has already taken steps to examine large load tariffs and to pause certain interconnections while those rules are developed. That was an important and responsible action. But from the perspective of Delaware residents, the concerns remain very clear. Delaware families cannot become the silent financial backstop for billion-dollar corporations. If companies want to build massive power-consuming facilities here, they should be responsible for the true cost of energy they require. That includes generation, transmission upgrades, and any grid infrastructure necessary to support their operations. Those costs should in no way, shape, or form be passed on to the families who are simply trying to keep the lights on in their homes. Delaware is a small state with a limited electrical grid and limited water resources. If we do not establish strong legally enforceable guardrails now, we will risk creating long-term infrastructure obligations that the residents will ultimately be forced to subsidize. So I respectfully ask this commission to ensure that large load customers pay the full and fair cost of their demand. Reliability matters, affordability matters, and most importantly, transparency matters in these issues. Fairness to Delaware residents must remain at the center of every decision made regarding our electrical grid. I want to just implement in here, I'm very well aware that our president has asked for pledges to be made. Those pledges are not legally enforceable, nor has Starwood Capital made a pledge. Thank you for your time and your service to the people of Delaware. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Royal. Does anybody have questions of Ms. Royal?
Ms. Royal, this is Dallas Winslow speaking. I'm the chairman of the commission. And I would just like to extend to you and the whole commission our appreciation for really a wonderful job you did of presenting the issue of the large costs to the consumers in our state. I think that message has been heard very well by the commission, by the legislature, and the governor is certainly working full time to try to come up with solutions to some of the issues. So thank you so much, and I thought you did a great job. I think you should get a credit for your first year in law school.
Thank you so much. Am I allowed to speak? I did
Yes,
speak
you
with
are.
the governor's office yesterday, and they have promised me some time, which I'm ever so grateful for. I have spent hundreds of hours as a simple resident holding a full-time job digging into this. My family has donated in the land in the past, including the Corbett Callaway Library in Odessa. We are very people-minded. I'm adopted. I was raised in that family. This is my mission to speak for the residents of Newcastle County. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any others who wish to make public comment at this time?
Before you approach the microphone, Madam Acting Chair, may I? Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Winslow, when you're not speaking, could you please place your system on mute?
Well, I was expected to be reprimanded by you, but the problem is I've got this newish phone, and I don't see where the mute button is. So, and I've told the visitor to be quiet, please, and then so I think I should be okay. But
The mute button is on Zoom.
Thank you.
To mute yourself on
Yes,
Zoom.
sir.
thank you.
Your name, please.
Yes, ma'am. Brandon Alfaro. And I'm definitely not a public speaker or anything like that. I want to make this more real for everyone. I'm not sure how many of you are parents, how many of you are grandparents. I'm sure if you are, you love your children, you love your grandchildren. I just want to ask you the question of, when they leave your home, do you want them to be financially independent? Do you want them to rely on you for, their bills to be paid? I'm guessing no, but I could be wrong. And if that's the case, then do you want your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren to have these energy bills? Our bills are already at almost mortgage rates for some people. Delmarva's had an increase 3 times in 5 years. They have Title 26 allowing, I guess as most of you would know, to pass their cost along to consumers. No other business is run like this. They budget that in. Do you want to? You're only here for a short period of time, but your family is going to be here for generations. My question for you is, do you want to be the person when they look back to say, someone in my family could have stopped us. We could have done something. Or do you want them to say they had a choice, but they decided to put large corporations, Delmarva Power, before the people? This is a small, very small group of people making a very important decision for a large group of people, a majority of which are upstate, a majority of which who are a Black community. I don't even see representation from that community anywhere here. Their voices I see are someone not being heard. Definitely not being heard if we've given Delmarva an increase this much, and also allowing them, where's the cap on the delivery fee? There is no cap on this. People's delivery fees are almost the same or more than their bill. I can't persuade you, I guess. My question for you would be, do you want to be remembered? Not in the public, that's fine. If you don't care what the public thinks, I understand. Do you want to be remembered in your family as someone who said, you know what, when my grandchildren move out and they have an energy bill, I'm okay with them paying $2,300 a month. I'm okay with them paying $1,100 a month for, we're talking small apartments, 500 square foot apartments here are at $600, $700, $800 a month for energy bills. I would just ask you, please, you've already given them increases this many times, just make the right decision. That's it. Thank you.
So very much, Mr. Alfaro and Ms. Royal. It was very good to hear from both of you. Thank you. All right, and,
I believe Mr. Tweedy.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jamison Tweedy, Public Advocate for the state of Delaware. I had some comments I was going to make reminiscent of my comments at the last meeting about the energy affordability crisis we're in and the need to deal with it. But I don't think I could have said it any better than Stephanie and Brandon. So I'll just leave it there and would just echo their comments and the comments that I've made before. I think did want to hit on Brandon's comment about the importance of this work. I think it is incredibly important, and we have a chance to do something meaningful here. And to that end, I'm really excited that I have started to rebuild the team over at DPA, and I'm really excited that Samantha Hayjack is our new Deputy Public Advocate, started this week, which I'm really excited about, and I'm really excited about the capacity that she will add to DPA to keep doing the work that we do. So thank you.
Very much. And now on to the consent agenda. Any questions, anything that we should remove or change?
Madam Acting Chair, yes, I'd like to put item number 9 on the consent agenda onto the regular agenda. That's going to be docket 250968. And
That motion.
I'd like to move that we move that to the regular agenda. Yes.
We have a second, please.
I second.
Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one has been moved.
And following that, Madam Acting Chair, I'd like to move that the balance of the consent agenda be adopted as submitted.
And I second that.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We don't hear you, Chair Winslow.
Okay, well, thank you. Since
We're voting on the
since it's
consent.
being moved to the,
We're voting on, Mr. Chairman, we're voting on the balance of the consent agenda.
okay, I thought that Joanne had called on me to make a comment, but I apologize then.
You're voting aye?
I'm voting aye, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're on to the regular agenda. Where do we want to put number 9 as
That was
number
my question.
2 on the regular agenda?
That's suitable. Thank you.
Number 1 on the regular agenda is in the matter of the tariff filing by Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for a new Town of Ellendale franchise fee rider. And let's see, we have Mr. O'Brien to speak on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Conaway and Commissioners and Chair Winslow on the phone. Bill O'Brien on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation. In December, the town of Ellendale granted Chesapeake a franchise so that we can provide service to the town residences and businesses. The franchise agreement includes a franchise fee of 0.966 cents per therm to be recovered from customers within the town and then paid to the town. The fee is essentially the equivalent of 1 cent per CCF, which is what many of our earlier franchise agreements established. In March, Chesapeake filed this application seeking to establish the Ellendale franchise fee rider as part of its tariff. In January, the Commission issued the opening order in this proceeding, directing the company to publish notice of its application and setting a date of today to hear the matter before the Commission. The company published the notice and filed proof of such publication on January 14th in this docket. The Commission received no comments or objections to the application. What you have before you is order number 10970, which would be the final order in this docket, approving the 0.966 cents per therm Town of Ellendale franchise-free rider, effective April 1, 2026. You also have staff's memorandum recommending approval of the application with certain conditions on such approval. Those conditions are included in the proposed order. For these reasons, the company respectfully requests that the Commission enter the proposed final order number 10970. Thank you, and thank you to staff for its work on this.
Thank you.
Staff agrees with the representations made by Mr. O'Brien, and we recommend that the Commission enter order number 10970 as presented.
Counselor,
No comments from DPA on the matter.
do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? May I have a motion?
I move that we adopt order number 10970 as presented.
I second.
Second.
Thank you.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. And now we'll go to number 9-2. In the matter of the application of FPS Cedar Creek Solar LLC for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a renewable energy interconnection facility. We have Ms. Workman.
Actually, Madam Acting Chair, if I could begin this discussion. I had some concerns, some questions with regard to the application and the evidence provided in this situation. Let me start by saying I'm clearly in favor of solar community deployment, and I'm also in favor of more generation here in the state of Delaware. But when I read through the evidence, I was a little conflicted and tried to wrap my head around some of the information provided, and so I just need to seek more clarification. On this matter, if I recall, and I'm hoping that Ms. Workman will correct me if I'm saying something that wasn't in the record, but we gave this matter to the hearing examiner, and when the evidence came back for us to, by consensus, agree on it, I didn't see anything summarized from the hearing examiner.
So the hearing examiner in this case was strictly limited. His authority was strictly limited to motions to intervene. And I believe DENREC intervened, and that was the only thing that the hearing examiner touched. He didn't review the application or anything that was presented.
Was there no information in the evidence record from DENREC as an intervener?
Yes, DENREC did not give us anything.
Okay. So as I read through this, did I interpret correctly that this development will provide an interconnection of roughly 133 megawatts in total?
My name is Peter Ford. Oh, sorry, Pam, you're the pro.
No, I just want to make sure everyone's
Yeah,
names.
please introduce yourselves.
I'm Pam Scott here on behalf of the applicant. I have with me.
Peter Ford on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon.
Douglas Solkowski, Maztec Professional Services.
Thank you. Okay. So about 133 megawatts of interconnection?
It's a bit of a nuanced answer. So we have 114 megawatts completely through the queue and signed interconnection and construction agreements with DPL. And we have another 20 megawatts, so making that 134 in total, that is imminently through the queue. So I think 134 is the right way to think about it, but the core project is 114 megawatts.
Okay. And another aspect for me is I didn't see in the evidence anything from Delmarva or any affidavit that said you were already through the queue. And I was kind of concerned, why wasn't DPL an intervener in the matter? Since you're going to connect to their grid, you're not connecting to the PJM grid, right?
We are connecting on a wholesale basis to the PJM grid through the Delmarva facilities, and that's just sort of how it works as a wholesale generator. So we are connecting at the Cedar Creek substation, which is owned by Delmarva. We have a interconnection and construction agreement with Delmarva. Delmarva has a $5 at $10 million reimbursable to do the work inside their substation on our behalf. But it is PJM who administers all of the interconnection features because this is a wholesale generation interconnection application.
Okay, I appreciate that. But again, in the evidence, I saw nothing that is affiliated approvals or involvement by either PJM or DPL. And I was a little concerned in terms of the hearing examiner not providing any summary to us, nothing related to DPL, nothing related to PJM specific to this project. One question I also have here is,
Respond.
yes, please, go ahead, Pam.
That is not required by your regulations. That is not required by your regulations. Everything that was submitted in connection with this application was submitted as required by your regulations. And the other thing I'd like to point out, we still have to go through a whole process after this to get all the approvals to construct this facility. We have to go to DelDOT, we have to go to DENREC, we have to go through the local jurisdiction. So your review is not of final construction documents or anything like that, and they're not required as part of the application. This is a high level, it was always meant to be a high level review per the statutory language. And we have submitted everything that was required as part of your regs.
Okay, I understand that. And there were statements saying that there are other clearances and approvals that are required. That's a given. But I would submit for the record, for staff in terms of the regulations, that we have something in there that says that the grid partner in some way, that's part of the checklist and it's taken care of. Because for me, it just left a gap that there's a major player, a stakeholder who was not visibly either involved or approved for this to move forward.
Well, and obviously we can't move forward until we have the approval of either PJM and or Delmarva to move ahead.
Yeah, but you're looking for a CPCN from us, and I'm saying that for our decision to make an
I
informed decision.
understand, but again, and this is the first application that you're considering under the new statute that was adopted and the new regs. And perhaps there's a need to modify your regs to require some additional things.
Yeah, I understand. So I'm getting information on this specific project in this setting, but I'm also creating, in terms of a record, something that we can move forward with improvements that we don't have to pull things from a consent agenda in the future. Okay?
Commissioner, if I could give you a little background, we have been involved in this development for almost 10 years. We made application to PJM 8 years ago. And because of PJM's incredibly congested, to use a delicate word, PJM queue process, in addition to COVID, it was very slow to get this interconnection through. We are completely through the PJM and Delmarva interconnection queue process for 114 megawatts. We have a signed interconnection service agreement, interconnection construction agreement. Because of delays and partly related to delays waiting for this law to pass and CPCN to be a vehicle we could choose, we paused our interconnection work with PJM and DPL because of the nature of their requirements. So again, to answer your question without the detail, we have been engaged with DPL and PJM for 8 years and now are completely through that process, but currently in a suspended nature, awaiting final regulatory approval from both the CPCN, PSC process, and as Pam points out, this is the first stop on the train, and we have 4 or 5 more stops to make before we can start construction, and the meaningful ones are DelDOT and DENREC. And we cannot make application to either DelDOT or DENREC until we are through your process.
Understood. Thank you. One last point I'll make here in terms of the evidence presented for review. There is an application affidavit that's been filed, and I think, Mr. Ford, you signed it, that basically says the applicant has obtained all the licenses and permits required to operate the proposed business in the state of Delaware. And there's further affirmations in here in terms of supporting documentations, additional information, final certificate to operate. I think that this was also confusing in terms of there's an engineering overview at a high level that said there was permits that are missing, and then an affidavit that said all the permits are in hand. So I don't know who needs to take a note on this, maybe staff in terms of the regulations, but this is the reason why it left me very, very concerned and conflicted about exactly what kind of decision to make on this matter.
It's a very reasonable and thoughtful question. I think the way I would say it in a commercial standpoint is we have obtained all the permits that we can obtain. And then without CPCN, we cannot make application to the final permits that we do not yet have. So I will turn it over to Pam in terms of the nuance of the affidavit, but I would agree with you that it is a subset of final permits that we have obtained. And that remaining list, the threshold issue is CPCN before we can even start those processes.
Okay. All right. So you have settled a number of my concerns. Thank you very much for understanding and taking the time to address and to
Of
listen
course.
to those. Ms. Scott, do you have any other comments or suggestions?
I just wanted to clarify in the affidavit, I think the sentence that you're pointing to has to do with the entity itself having all the required permits and licenses to operate a business in Delaware, because the preceding paragraph talks about that we agree to comply with all federal, state, et cetera, regs. So I believe that the sentence you were looking at had to do with the status of the business itself being able to operate in Delaware.
Okay. One last point I'll make here is in this specific case, the evidence was not very rich in terms of the managerial and operational ability to be granted the certificate for this type of project. What I saw about the entity had much, much more to do with the financial nature and structure and the holding company organization. But I have seen in other cases where this manager has gained these number of years of experience with respect to interconnecting solar community facilities. And so I would appreciate in the future, and perhaps this is when staff is gathering evidence, that we get information that really grounds the managerial operation ability in the specific scope of what we are being asked to decide.
I'd like Mr. Ford to provide that information.
I don't think in this case. I think that the testimony he's provided to me, I have a confidence that he's been working on this, and he's plugged a couple of the holes that were missing for me in the documented evidence. So I feel a much, much greater comfort level, and I appreciate everyone's patience and the time for me to gather this insight, because for me, looking through the evidence, I was a little bit confounded. Can you confirm, out of the megawatts that you're interconnecting, there are no single large load greater than 25 megawatt customers?
We are a wholesale generator. We have nothing to do with load. I think from the testimony I've heard from Public Advocate and others, we will be helping this problem.
Yeah.
We will be selling this output to a commercial PJM wholesale buyer, but all of the actual electrons will be flooding into Kent and Newcastle County from an electrical engineering standpoint and adding a local generation. So we have nothing to do with large loads, and our interconnection is strictly an injection interconnection. There is no withdrawal. If you don't mind, I would like to parlay that issue for something the Public Service Commission to consider. One of the things that we would like to do at this location is potentially add battery projects that would not require an additional interconnection, but would only use the headroom, as it is said, in our solar interconnection. So when the sun is shining, that solar power will be moving into the grid, but when the sun is not shining, we want to potentially be able to add additional electrons. And PJM has been, again, very slow to give guidelines on that headroom interconnection issue, which could speed renewable projects in general, not just solar, but wind as well, to be more fortified and more around the clock and do a better job of helping keep rates down.
Perfect. Well, it's a great story. I don't think we'll extend the scope
No, of course not.
consideration here.
Of course not.
And the only other thing I will say, Madam Chair, if I may, we need the generation. Thank you again very much for responding to my concerns, and get busy, please.
Thank you. We will.
Madam Acting Chair, I have no further comments. Thank you very much for the time.
I have nothing further to add to what Pam and the gentleman with her have stated. I would like to reiterate that staff reviewed the application and believes it follows the current regulations as they are, and that I see both Tricia and myself have been taking notes from this exchange to potentially update our regulations to head off any future issues as we come up with them. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Ms. Scott, do you have any comments before we conclude? Okay, thank you. Madam Acting Chair, I'd like to move that we adopt order number 10978 as submitted.
Nice second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
a question for Mr. Hardigan. It was a great presentation, and I learned a lot by the presentation. So thank you to Commissioner Gray as well. But I guess the reason I'm interjecting myself here is to sort of ask Mr. Hardigan to consider whether or not, given what was said before us today, and provided there's probably nothing else before, well, I guess there will be something else before us in the future, but I guess consider with staff whether or not we should make a letter or something to PJM to say these sort of problems are occurring and ask, sort of engage them about fixing that problem.
Thanks, Chairman Winslow. We can consider that. I mean, it may be more productive to engage PJM informally. They have made several improvements to their interconnection queue, so I don't think projects entering the queue now face the same hurdles that the project we just discussed did. But happy to talk more about that offline if you'd like.
Sure, I think that's, I'm confident in the judgment.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? All right. Under the hearing schedule, in the matter of the adoption of rules and regulations to implement the provisions of 26 Delaware Code, Chapter 10, relating to the creation of a competitive market for retail electric supply service, opened April 27th, 1999. Ms. Workman, you are on that one.
Thank you. Kate Workman on behalf of the commission. Today's hearing is for the commission to receive public comments regarding Regulation 3001, which are the rules for certification and regulation of electric suppliers. As I'm sure we all remember, we began this process after last winter when we received a lot of comments from various ratepayers, the governor's office, the DPA's office. We were all receiving similar complaints about third-party supplier charges. And one of these solutions that the state government team came up with was to tighten the regulations to protect consumers more. And so we've been working on this for a year. We previously published regulations in October. And then we, as a result of the public comment process, we made some substantive changes to our proposed regulation, and those updated amendments were published this February, and this is the public hearing where the public is welcome to give their input regarding those proposed regulations. After the hearing today, public comments are going to be left open for 15 days through March 26th. And then at a later meeting, the commission will consider all of the comments and either re-amend and republish or submit a final order, and then we'll try and get these finalized quickly. Before the hearing, the commission and staff received one public comment, which is publicly available on Delafile and was provided to the commission prior to today's hearing. And at this time, I would ask any members of the public who have come today to comment on the proposed regulations to step forward and please share the comments with the commission today. And I would ask that if anyone is providing comment, please identify yourself, state your name for the record. So at this time, if anybody would like to provide public comment, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Green. I'm a lawyer with Green Herlocker. It's good to be back here again. It's been quite a while, but Mr. Chairman and out in cyber world and commissioners, it's very good to see you again and to be back in Delaware. I represent the Retail Energy Supply Association, or RESA. We have been involved in matters in Delaware affecting customer choice since the inception of customer choice. I think I first started coming up here in 2001, and I was actually late to the game. So we were heavily involved in the initial setup of standard offer service for residential and small commercials. We were heavily involved in the initial writing of the electric supplier rules. And then approximately 10 years ago, I believe it was after the polar vortex of 2014, numerous states in the District of Columbia began to rewrite and improve their current rules, and Delaware was one of those. So I spent a significant amount of time up here with DPA, with staff, as we rewrote those rules and more or less what they are today with respect to the suppliers. So we had, I think that the comments, the one public comment came from RESA. So, okay, so that answers that question. We had comments on 5 areas of the proposed revisions, 4 of the proposed revisions, and then we had our own proposal. I'm happy to walk through those. It would really be a summary of our comments, and I'll try to keep it high level, or if you don't want me to do that and you just have some questions, we can go right to that. But I just want to be respectful of everybody's time.
Commissioners, what do you prefer?
Sure, okay, fine. The initial section is in the variable price change. So the current rule today, which actually is very similar to what was or is in place in Maryland, is that if there is a variable price, which is a price that can change month to month from a supplier, then the supplier, the rule is that the supplier has to allow access to next month's price 12 months before that price takes effect. So the supplier does not have to actually send you something, text you, phone you, call, whatever the mode of communication may be. But in the contracting documents, in the contract summary, and in other notices that are listed in the rules, that information has to be in the notice as to how you would get access to your next month's price. Normally, you go to a website or you make an 800 phone call and find the price. That's the most typical route. Under the proposed rules, the revised rules that we're here today for, there would be an affirmative obligation on behalf of the supplier to transmit that price to you still 12 days before the price becomes effective. That's the first change. And then the second change is that the supplier would have to communicate with you using 2 different methods. So let's say it was 13 days before the price became effective, the supplier would A, be obligated to inform you what the next price was, right? You wouldn't have to go look for anything. And then B, they would have to inform you in 2 different ways. And so RESA is okay with A, right? We have no problem reaching out to the supplier, to our customer, to tell them this is what your next month's price is going to be. That's fine. That was actually, just as a side note, a pretty hot debate 10 or 12 years ago, but now the suppliers are okay with communicating the next month's price to their customer. The issue is, and what we talk about in our comments, is the requirement that there be 2 methods of communication to customers, either by phone, I think it's by writing or direct mail, and then the third one being by electronic. So, and that creates several problems for a supplier. One is that sometimes customers don't want to give us that information. They don't want to give their email or their cell phone, but we have their mailing address. So we only have one way to get in touch with them. Others, the customer may say, I don't want you to email me. I don't want you to text me. I don't want you to mail, whatever the mode is, right? They don't want it. They want, if you want to get in touch with me, here's how I'd like you to do it. You can text me at this number. Don't send me mail, don't email me, don't whatever, right? So the two modes of communication puts a supplier at sometimes what can be an impossible task to communicate with its own customer. And then the other problematic issue is the FTC rules actually prohibit certain communications with your own customers, believe it or not, by phone or by text, if it's an audio recording. So you couldn't have, if you have thousands of customers, you'd have to have a live person call each one of them. So that makes it very cost prohibitive, potentially. So with all of that background, what we would propose in our comments on page 3 is a slight revision so that the supplier would only be required to reach out in one mode of communication to their customer to tell them what the next month's price is going to be. And we have that on page 3 of our comments of what the red line would be, which would simply be to, the sentence would say the electric supplier provides the customer with notice by telephone, written notice, or electronic notice. So there would, the two modes of communication would be deleted. That is the first issue. The second issue is there's a section on changes in section 9.1 of the rules is changes in fixed price or material terms of the contract. So again, the revision would require 2 notices, and for all the reasons I just said, 2 notices is problematic. It's still problematic if you're going to modify your fixed price contract, either the price of it for whatever reason that is allowable in the contract or a material term in the contract. We would propose actually, this is where our comments, this is the longest section of our comments, and it's only because we would recommend that Delaware replace the current section 9 with the Pennsylvania rule. So the Pennsylvania rule on notices of cancellation or notices of changes to material terms, such as a fixed price, requires 2 notices, but it's one is between 45 and 60 days, one is within 30 days of the change, and then it has a whole bunch of other parameters that actually provide more customer protections to customers than what is in Section 9 of the Delaware rules. So the Pennsylvania, but our members of RISA are familiar with Pennsylvania. They do business in Pennsylvania. They're the same, more or less, suppliers that do business here in Delaware. They've gotten used to the Pennsylvania rule now, and it would be, they would prefer to just do the same thing in Delaware because it does go beyond, for several reasons, what the Delaware rule currently does as far as customer protections go. And just as a very high overview, the Pennsylvania rule would apply to expirations and cancellations of contracts. Delaware's rule does not. The Pennsylvania rule, I've adopted in Delaware, would require that information be sent, or that in the notices, the information on how to contact the commission has to be in there in Delaware. We would also insert information on how to contact DPA if they have any questions or concerns about the notices. The Pennsylvania rule requires that there be language. One of the notices, and maybe 2 if the customer wanted it, has to be by direct mail. So it requires language on the outside of the envelope saying, I don't know exactly what it says. It's in the rule, but it says something to the point of, this is important stuff about your energy bill. Please open this and read it. So there's also language, if you don't respond to the notices, what happens, and if you want to roll that customer per the contract to another fixed price, say you're on a year contract, you get the 2 notices, you don't respond, you default to another 1-year fixed price contract. Under the Pennsylvania rule, you can cancel at any time during the renewal period with no cancellation fee. So that again goes beyond what is currently in place in Delaware. And so just wanted to point that out, that it's a long rule in Pennsylvania. I put the whole rule in our comments because I felt like I wanted the convenience of you all being able to just see it very easily. So that's the second point. The next two are shorter, I promise. There's a section on, the enrollment, marketing, and advertising in section 11.3 of the rules. Okay, so this is, I think, Commissioner Gray, this may go to your point from, I think, maybe back in October. This is where the supplier would be required to represent to the customer, I am not with Delmarva Power and I am not with the commission. And suppliers struggle with this because what we have found in the field is that the more you say the words, the name of the utility or the name of the commission, the more the customer hears, I'm with that utility or I'm with that commission. And we've had suppliers in the do door to door that wear buttons and hats that say, I am not the utility, I am not the name of utility here. They actually insert the name. And there are still complaints that say, I didn't know I was signing up with a supplier, no matter how the level of education that is done. So I can tell you this was an issue 10 or 12 years ago. This is why it was not in the rule, because we've been seeing this for 20 years now, that the more we say, I'm not with Delmarva Power, I'm not with whatever the name of the utility is, the more you say the name of the utility, the more you mention the utility, the more there's potential confusion or potential for confusion by the customer. So what we have found is that if you say I'm not with the utility or I'm not with the government, that doesn't eliminate the confusion, but it tends to make it a little less. So we have proposed a red line that would do that rather than name the utility and name the commission. And that's on page 7 of our comments. I don't think anything here is going to be foolproof, but we're trying to bring our experiences from being out in the field to the commission. The fourth comment is on.
Pardon me, Mr. Green, may I?
Yes, sir.
Since we are on this issue, which was somewhat passionate for me. So you're indicating that if someone mentions the utility, this is a magnet for the marketing, or it's an impediment for the marketing? Which side of this ledger are you?
No, I think it's the preference of at least RISA members to not mention the utility at all, and to say, if anything, I'm not with the utility, the general use of the actual word utility as opposed to naming the utility specifically.
Okay, so does your language suggest that the utility and the commission are not mentioned in the marketing process at all? And the reason I'm asking that question is because I was a target, a young man who came to my property representing that he was there from the Public Service Commission.
And that's a problem. I mean, I'm not, there's no way.
So that's why I'm asking you the question. Is your proposed language suggesting that the utility and the commission are not mentioned at all in marketing? Because I get many phone calls representing that they are with Delmarva, and I know that they're not. They're marketing for retail. So I'm curious to know, what is your proposed language?
The proposed language that we suggest on the top of page 8 of our comments, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gray, is I'm not affiliated with your utility or the government. And like I said, that is, I can pretty much guarantee you that will not eliminate all confusion, but our experience is that it does tend to reduce it, as opposed to naming the utility or naming the specific commission.
That's certainly a step in the direction of my interest. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Green. So you said something about information on the outside of the envelope that says, please open this up, it's important information. Are you talking about a separate piece from the Delmarva bill? Because the energy providers, electricity providers are sending their bills or collecting through Delmarva. So at some point, you have to mention, obviously, that, we're going to bill you, you'll see it right on your Delmarva bill, which would,
Right. So,
I think, make people associate it almost immediately with Delmarva.
right, so you're talking about the billing, which is utility consolidated billing, where the Delmarva sends the one bill with all the charges on it, including the supplier charges. I'm talking about a notice from the supplier that, and this is going back to the other section, section 9, the notice from the supplier that there is to be either the contract is being canceled or terminated, or that there's a change in a material term in the contract. And so that, under our proposal, there would be an initial notice that went out 45 to 60 days before the expiration or the cancellation or the change took effect. There would be another notice that went out 30 days before that date. And especially the second notice, which would have to go by direct mail, which is the Pennsylvania rule, and I'll just read to you here, which is on page 6 of our comments. Then this is from the supplier to the customer about the contract. So there's no billing, like meter reading information or anything like that in this letter. Language clearly visible on the front of the envelope used to provide this options notice, stating that it contains important information regarding the expiration or changes in terms of the customer's electric supply contract. That's what I was talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the fourth deals with section 11.6 of the rules. Okay, so this has to do with the new requirement that the supplier, once they sign up a customer, would send the customer a letter, and the letter would basically say, welcome to my company, and had certain required disclosures in the letter. So as a point of reference, suppliers typically do this today anyway. They send what's called a welcome kit. They have a letter with the copy of the contract and with the contract summary. The only issue we have with what's in the revised 11.6.3, I believe it is that the new rule would require the supplier to say in that notice, to tell the customer, quote, the date on which the electric supplier will begin supplying electricity. And the problem we have with that is that suppliers do not control that date. The actual processing of the switch, the customer's switch to the supplier, is performed by Delmarva Power. So what happens is, and it's not, this is we can get past this. This is not a huge issue. Typically, the supplier will tell the customer, your service with my company will begin on the date the utility processes your enrollment. And what will happen is, if I'm the supplier, I sign up the customer, I will immediately send out a letter and the packet, the welcome kit. I will wait the required 3 days for the rescission period. Then I will submit electronically the enrollment to the utility. They have 3 business days under the rules to process the switch. And so that's the rub, right? We don't know within those 3 business days when it's going to be processed. So we've just proposed some little more general language around that because we don't know the actual date that they're going to process the switch. We might be off by a day or 3. We don't know we don't know. So we've proposed some just higher level language along the lines of what I just said, that your service will begin when the utility processes the switch request. Okay. And then the last issue is an issue that we've brought to the table. It's not in the rules. The current rules in section 3.3 uh, deal with the provision by Delmarva Power of customer lists to suppliers that want them. The current lists have in them about 10 data points, including the customer's name, service address, billing address, tariff rate schedule, it's some other information, whether the customer is currently an SOS customer. Our proposal is that the customer lists, and there's the whole section of the rules allow customers to opt out of the list, and it states how often the list is refreshed by Delmarva Power. And there's a giant paragraph on security and privacy concerns about the lists and how suppliers are not allowed to misuse that information. We would propose that the list be expanded to include an additional data point, which is the Delmarva account number or service, that they have a 22-digit service number that is required to process the switch that is separate from your account number. Both of these numbers are on your bill, but customers don't know their account number, and they certainly don't walk around memorizing their 22-digit service number, nor do they take their bill with them. So the result of that is that suppliers typically if they want to market to residential customers, they really have no choice but to go to the customer's house, whether it be by direct mail, physically with door-to-door, or residential telesales. And we do have suppliers in Pennsylvania, for example, you can get the account number, and that they started that in 2014. They've just issued an order last year authorizing the continuation of these customer lists. So it's working in Pennsylvania, and it will encourage a supplier to do things like set up a kiosk at a mall where you don't have to be at their house with your bill in order to enroll and to have the information you need to process that switch, or to begin the enrollment process, I should say. And I would again just reiterate that this is information that's already available in the pre-enrollment. I should say, I'm not reiterating this part, but it's available in the pre-enrollment with customer consent. And here for customer lists, it would be available where the customer could opt out. And that opt-out, I believe, is good for a 3-year process. So, and this is an issue too that Pennsylvania has dealt with. It seems, people are very concerned about it, and I think rightfully so, but with the rules being what they are here with security and privacy, with the commission's authority to act against bad actors, and with the really, I don't want to say lack of issues in Pennsylvania, but at least the continuation of the list, the PUC's decision over there to continue using the list with the account numbers and other identifying number to process a switch is very telling to us that it does work, and it is a valuable resource for suppliers. So those are our 5 points. I appreciate the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would be curious if the public advocate had any reaction to the proposed changes, and also from staff as well.
Kate, do you want to address any of it? Or
Staff is thoughtfully considering these proposals. I think I can't tell you what they think, but it is in consideration, and if staff will give a recommendation when the commission is called upon to issue a final order. A lot of the changes, I will note, if staff were to make the changes requested, they would be substantive changes because they deal with notice requirements. And so those substantive changes, we would have to redo the whole dog and pony show of Title 29 regulation hearings. So we would have to republish as proposed, hold another hearing, and then collect comments, republish as final. So it's going to push our timeline out from, I think we were at a May, potentially having a final regulation. If we are to accept these comments, we're going to have to push that out several more months. But it's worth it I think the commission's going to have to weigh at our next meeting, hopefully, if that's worth it to get these issues potentially fixed. And I think staff's going to have staff will have a recommendation for you at the next meeting.
We'll also take a careful look at these and appreciate the explanations and the context. I think as a general matter, we have real concerns about third-party suppliers and the way they market, and so we're hesitant to relax any of these requirements because we got a fairly consistent stream of people who have issues with third-party suppliers and end up on contracts they didn't initially intend or didn't understand. But that said, we'll take a look at the comments and see if there's anything that we can support.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no further questions, Madam Acting Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Green, for presenting that. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And just as a final thought for staff and DPA, we're happy to answer any questions over the next few weeks if you have any, or if you want to talk to any of our members, I'm happy to facilitate that. Anything we can do to be a good resource for you all, we're happy to help out. Thank you all.
Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment at this time? All right, well then pursuant to 29 Delaware Code 10118, the public comment period will remain open for an additional 15 days and written comments will be accepted. At I believe the first April meeting is when the commission is going to deliberate on the comments and make a decision regarding any more proposed amendments or finalizing the current amendments as they are. And with that, the public comment session is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. I would like to defer to Commissioner Drexler to give a brief update on the PJM Area Relevant State Entity Committee. I believe I got that right, PARSEC.
So today I'd like to update you and just give you a little information about what we're doing in both PARSEC and in OPSI as well. So back in 2024, former FERC commissioner at the time, Mark Christie, drafted FERC Order number 1920. And it's really important to us, especially in Delaware. FERC Order 1920 created the relevant state entities as stakeholders in the transmission processing planning process. So what the order does, it directs all of the RTOs, including PJM, the largest RTO, and our RTO, to create a committee, which we call PARSEC, the PJM Area Relevant State Entities Committee, to work together on transmission projects, how they're selected and how the costs are allocated. And that's why it's really important to Delaware, because there are what are considered core projects, and there are optional additional needs projects to be determined. And when we allocate costs across PJM, all of the states and DC, we are socializing those costs across a much smaller group of people in Delaware. So we have to be really careful about the kind of cost allocation that Delaware sees because we have fewer ratepayers. And so we've worked really hard in conjunction with the other states. We've met twice in Washington, both urgent meetings. We've been called to Washington to hammer out an agreement among all the states. And it's difficult. We have large states, we have small states, we have states like West Virginia that are quote unquote coal states. We have renewables, emphasis states on the shoreline. We have New Jersey and Maryland and Delaware. We just have different goals. So it's been a lot of work determining what the allocation can be. I mean, it's been a lot of work, and we've looked at a lot of different, I guess, whatever they call them, distributions. So in Delaware's case, we work in conjunction with DENREC. So DENREC has been part of all of these negotiations as well. Matt's been involved, Trisha's been involved, and we've all attended these meetings in association with our consultant, Eric Matheson, who's working very hard to protect Delaware's interests. On the DENREC side, Scott Hunter, Brian Geller have been representing DENREC as well. So 2 weeks ago in DC, we went with a mediation team, and it got a little heated, I think, at times. But we're really working carefully and closely, and we have come up with two options that have been agreed upon by more than 10 states, 10 plus states, which is required by Parsec. But we are really trying to come to a unanimous agreement, and that's what we will be working on, because we're looking at the April FERC filing by the transmission operators. So we want to get that sort of a consensus, and we're going to be meeting again. Today, we'll also be meeting on the OPSI side. So we're working on consensus. And the second day of our DC meeting was regarding another very important topic for Delaware, and that is that in the recent base residual auction, there was a shortfall. It was a 5.2% shortfall of the installed, what's it called? The installed
Capacity market.
the capacity market, the IRM it's called. So this is important because a shortfall means that there is excess demand and not enough supply. So if there's a shortfall in excess of 1% in any auction, which this was, it was 5.2%, and this happens for 3 auctions in a row, it triggers something called an RBA, not to be confused with the BRA. And that's a backstop auction. So we met on the second day in Washington to determine the parameters around any kind of a reliability backstop auction. And so what that means and what we're trying to focus on is new large loads. Why do we have a shortfall? I mean, it's because of the significant increased demand from the data centers and the limited supply. So we're not replacing, it's been mentioned in this meeting, we're not replacing old generation with new generation in a timely way. And that's really important when you're bringing on 81 data centers, for example, in Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and obviously even in Delaware, they're talking about it. So surging demand, limited supply. So what we're thinking about in this RBA, not to be confused with the organic base residual auction, but a new reliability auction, is focusing on those large loads, the new large loads, and requiring those large loads to have auction outside of our base residual auction, including bilaterally contracting their own they're with the generators directly, and assigning costs and risks associated with that accelerated procurement to be borne by the new large loads, the data centers. So we're talking about how to structure what potentially is going to happen, and that is if we have 2 more auctions, and the one we're talking about now is the 2027, 2028 auction, is to structure how the RBA will work and how it's going to protect us as ratepayers in Delaware especially. So those are the OPSI and Parsec doings. Again, reliability is the most important thing, resiliency and reliability, and meeting the organic load, which is the non-large load demand going forward. Are there any questions?
Could I just chime? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Gray. I appreciate all those updates, and I just wanted to add a comment on the. So you're talking about the potential reliability backstop auction.
Mm-hmm.
There's also conversation about a reliability backstop procurement. This sort of one-time procurement that is being now contemplated by PJM and was proposed by the White House.
Yes, the catch-up auction. Mm-hmm.
And one of DPA's concerns and concerns shared by other consumer advocates in other states is that auction looks like it will not be targeted to large loads, but instead will be for all load.
Right.
In which case, especially for states like Delaware, that could make it very, very challenging to allocate those costs back out appropriately to the entities that are actually causing it. So
Right. The shortfall auction does look at the 2026 load forecast in its totality. So yeah, you're talking about an overall, and that, yeah, those are issues that are important to us and the pass through of any of those costs to Delaware. But we're looking at going forward if there is a backstop auction. And let's face it, the way things are going, it seems like that would likely happen. We've already reached in the last auction the price cap, the collar, and keeping that in place in the next two auctions could create the same problem.
Just a comment from first reaction from my deck. I think that even if you have a backstop or replacement auction, if you're pulling from the same pool of generated capacity, then I can't imagine if you have three auctions against the same supply base, then you're still going to have the market driving the price into a range of unaffordability. You're always still going to have the same supply demand imbalance. So I'm not sure in terms of the actual economics of that it's going to make a huge difference, even though you don't allocate those costs initially to ratepayers. The results of the auction may be at such a sufficient high price that you begin to socialize what's left amongst the ratepayers.
if I could just comment on that, I think that's exactly the right point and exactly the thing we should be worried about. With the reliability backstop procurement that PJM is currently contemplating, it would not be subject to the price collar that exists for the capacity, the normal capacity market. And so those prices could be whatever PJM hasn't yet told us what this structure will be. So we're all reacting in real time, but that procurement doesn't have the price collar attached to it. And so that's where my office and other consumer advocates are really concerned if that auction includes all load rather than just being targeted to the large loads that are driving this problem and having them subject to an auction without a price collar.
And in our OPSI meetings, we're talking about requiring the NLLs to bilaterally contract and put in some other measures that solves that problem. So we want our input to be about preserving the regional resource adequacy exclusive of the NLLs, and they pay separately. So, I mean, those are the things we're talking about, and recognizing how important that is. It's we have a meeting at 3:00 today to discuss our goals and objectives, solving the problem you're talking about.
Well, I would worry. I see that there's an interest to put a ring fence around the fact that the ratepayer may not have to pay for that separate auction. But if you put a fence in a pool and you start sucking water out, then everybody's going to be affected because the people in the special auction to get higher price, they're going to deplete the supply.
Any other questions, comments?
I would just add the other thing that became clear in that meeting in DC was that every commission in the PJM region is struggling with affordability.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to get the cost allocation correct for these transmission projects, because they cost millions or sometimes billions of dollars of money. And as Commissioner Drexler implied, we have much fewer ratepayers to spread those costs over than other PJM states.
So we're
it's been a
working hard. I
huge-
mean, you're working hard. Eric is working. Our consultant is just, he's trying to draft all of these rules and regs for, and, you know, the presentation from Parsec so that it really does favor Delaware. And everybody's looking at it as fair and just and reasonable, except that one state who's determining it's a game and it's a zero-sum game. But it's really important because we have fewer people to socialize these costs among, that we make it as just as reasonable and fair for our state. And that's what we're working on. And regarding the core projects, we were one of maybe two holdout states that said, unless it's this way, we're not going to vote for it. So we did get that incorporated. So we're trying to have a consensus among the PJM states, but You know, our goal is obviously to be fair and just and reasonable in cost allocation and to be able to opt out of projects that don't benefit us according to a benefit cost analysis that makes sense. And so those are the kinds of things that are important. And, you know, we're paying a lot of attention to them. So thanks.
So our next meeting is March 25th.
Have a good night.